30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days within which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on H.R. 1.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, for the last 4 years, the American people have suffered one self-inflicted crisis after another, from the chaos at our southern border to our crime-ridden streets to a cost of living crisis that decimated working families from sea to shining sea, leaving Americans weaker, our country more divided and more vulnerable than it's been in generations. Colleagues, lest we forget how we got here and why this moment is so important and so consequential in the life of our country, let's reflect on the recent history. Under the leadership of Biden-Harris and congressional Democrats, our federal government failed to enforce the laws of our land and unilaterally surrendered our sovereign border to terrorist drug cartels. On top of that, our military mission was reduced from warfighter readiness to ideological indoctrination. We lost the confidence of our allies, the respect of our enemies, and America's influence on the world stage. Unbridled spending and failed fiscal policies sent our country's economy into a tailspin. Trillions in deficit spending, trillions more in regulations, cradle-to-grave welfare without work, and an all-out assault on American energy independence wreaked havoc on our economy and created the worst inflation crisis in 40 years. In November, the American people gave President Trump an historic mandate and unified Republican leadership in Congress to reverse course on these failed policies and their disastrous consequences. And that's exactly what this bill does, Mr. Speaker. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act delivers the greatest single investment in border security and national defense, the largest tax cuts for families and small businesses, the most significant commitment to unlocking America's energy resources, and the largest reduction in spending in the history of the United States by twofold. But in an attempt to derail our efforts, you can be sure of this: our Democrat colleagues will use their tired old tactics of fear-mongering and false claims. They like to lead you to believe that this reconciliation bill is a, quote, tax cut for the rich on the backs of the poor. Their narrative throughout this process has not only been misleading, Mr. Speaker, and completely untrue, it preys on the fears of our nation's most vulnerable. Here's the truth. The 2017 tax cuts lowers tax rates for every American household at every income level, with the lower income families benefiting the most, while actually increasing the amount of taxes paid at the top 1%. 3 out of every $4 in the Trump tax cuts didn't go to corporations, they went to individuals. Workers experienced a record 25-year wage increase. Families received an additional $5,000 in median household income, and income for the bottom 50% grew 3 times faster than the top 1%. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, a record 6 million Americans were lifted out of poverty. This won't stop our Democrat colleagues from scaring you with fallacious statements that, quote, children will go without food, seniors will be stranded without health care, and the disabled will be left to die in the streets. All of this is just a cover for what they really want to do. They want to protect health care and welfare at any cost for illegal immigrants, at the expense of hardworking taxpayers and our citizens who depend on them. And crazy enough, Mr. Speaker, they also want to abandon the common sense Clinton-era work requirements that reduce government dependency by 80%. And instead, they would trap millions of people in poverty and rob them of the dignity of work. But by the overwhelming results of this last election, it's abundantly clear the American people see through this too. And they have totally rejected the Democrats' radical agenda. Their message to Washington was clear, Mr. Speaker. They want competent leaders, common sense policies, and a commitment from all of us to put America and Americans first. Now, let's give the people what they voted for. I reserve my time.
Reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Boyle.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Speaker, by my calculation, I have now been up 43 of the last 45 hours, and I'm not quitting yet. And we're not quitting yet, because the stakes are just too damn high. This is one of the most significant pieces of legislation we will ever vote on. This bill will bring about the greatest loss of health care in American history. More than 6 million Americans who are currently on the Affordable Care Act will lose their health insurance if this Republican bill becomes law. More than 7 million Americans currently on Medicaid will lose their health care if this Republican bill becomes law. In fact, in total, 13.7 million Americans will lose their health care, according to the nonpartisan CBO. That's bad enough. But then, late last night, we also got confirmation from CBO that something else is in this bill. Over $500 billion worth of cuts to Medicare. All told, given the cuts to the ACA, the cuts to Medicaid, the cuts to Medicare, the largest loss of health care in American history as a result of this bill. Not even during the Great Depression did so many people lose their health care as will lose it in this bill. And there are even more cuts beyond that. Cuts to nutrition assistance programs, cuts to Head Start, cuts to other education programs. The list goes on and on. Why? To help pay for over $5 trillion worth of tax cuts, most of which that go to the top 1%. But here's the thing. As draconian as these cuts are, they actually don't even come close to paying for the size of the tax cuts. So how is the rest subsidized? With more debt financing. So much so that we have finally seen, for the first time ever, the Moody's credit agency on Friday downgrade the quality of the credit of the United States. Today, we saw more market churn. Markets are worried. Now, most ordinary Americans, most people I call as neighbors and friends back home in Northeast Philly, a very working class and middle class place, most people I know aren't paying attention to the credit agencies and what Wall Street is doing. But here's the thing. It will affect interest rates. In fact, it already is. Mortgage rates have gone back up over 7% and set to rise by more. Not just mortgage rates, auto loan rates, the rate that your credit card company charges you. At a time of increasing unaffordability in America, this bill doesn't make the situation better. It makes it far, far worse. Mr. Speaker, this is not the kind of bill that is worthy of the Congress of the United States. This is class warfare. It makes the poor poorer, the rich richer, and the middle class left behind. And again, these aren't Democratic talking points. These aren't coming from progressive organizations. Last night, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office released the distribution tables in terms of who will get what from this tax bill. They found the bottom 10% will be 4% poorer in household wealth under this bill, with most of the benefits going to the top 10% of Americans. And of that top 10%, of course, it is the top 1% that will get the most benefit of all. Robbing the poor to reward the rich. It is wrong. It is bad economics. And it is, as one Republican senator called it, morally wrong. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves the balance of his time. Gentleman from Texas.
Mr. Speaker, just to be clear, the CBO doesn't say economic benefits. It talks about federal resources. That letter actually affirms the success of our bill. We will actually have people, because of reasonable common sense work requirements and because of prohibitions on illegal immigrants, getting taxpayer-funded social services, we'll actually have people moving up and out of the welfare trap. And we won't have people siphoning off money who are not eligible. And that is success, not to them, but success to my Republican colleagues. With that, I yield 2 minutes to my good friend from